Okay, awesome. Awesome. I think we are live. I'll just wait for a minute or two for people to join in. But yeah, hi Alex, how are you doing today?
Yeah, all good, all good. How are you?
I'm going good. I
My
think
favorite
people are joining.
co-host trying to get attention.
Nice co-host. Awesome. So I think we'll wait for like a minute or two and then we can kickstart. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean the focus today is all on Slack MCP that has been built natively by Alex, and he'll give a quick sneak peek on how it looks like. How can you pull up your messages and all of stuff from Slack to Zencoder, and yeah. So I think we can get started.
All right. So let me share my screen. As last week, I have a few slides just to make everyone on the same page, sort of. And of course, a few memes here and there.
Awesome.
All right.
Then
So,
let me add your screen. Just give me a second.
all right.
Okay, awesome. Cool. I think we can get started. Alex, the stage is all yours.
All right, great. Yeah, so yeah, Slack MCP. So just to sort of keep everyone on the same page, just a few words about MCP, because everybody is talking about MCP nowadays, and everybody, like everyone, is trying to get every company basically is trying to introduce their own MCP server for their product. Like GitHub recently did this. And I mean, generally, probably it's easier to find the comments which do not have MCP rather than company, basically everyone is trying to do this, and those can be either official MCPs, it can be unofficial, basically third-party MCPs. Like for example, I will mention a few other messaging app MCPs later. Like for example, Teams, I think is official one, but for example, for the Telegram, I think it's unofficial, basically third-party. But again, MCP is a pretty nice thing, and just to sort of just a quick refresher on how it works. Essentially, this is like the whole flow of what's going on behind the scene when you ask the LLM on anything that LLM thinks they need extra context. And in general, MCP or Model Context Protocol is the thing that allows LLM or agent to get a bit more context to give you the answer to your question, right? So in case of Slack, for example, it could be some sort of threads, it could be some sort of messages, any discussions on your Slack, or maybe if you're using Teams instead of Slack, so the same principle basically applies. So it allows you as a user, LLM on your behalf to get more context, or maybe to respond to some threads, to some messages on Slack, where you might want to get some help from the agent. And the main two entities here is MCP client, which in our case will be Zencoder essentially, or more broadly the IDE, right, where Zencoder lives. And the second entity is MCP server, which is responsible for executing all the tool calls, all the model requests on behalf of the MCP client. So in our case, it will be, for today, it will be Slack MCP, and I will show its capabilities a bit later, like the full list of what it can do. But basically, overall, the flow goes as you can see on the slide. So basically, whenever you as a user ask something from LLM to which LLM doesn't have enough context. So like here in this example, this response time for Google. Obviously, LLM doesn't know this. Well, it might have seen some historical data, I guess, in the training data, but obviously doesn't know this at that moment, right? So for this case, it might decide to call some external server, MCP server. For example, it could be some Bash MCP tool that would execute a ping and then get this context, this extra context to LLM, and then LLM will act based on this basically. And you can find quite a lot of different already pre-built MCP tools. So here, for example, is a screenshot from our MCP library, which you can find right inside the IDE, right? So there are a lot of different MCP servers, which you can use for pretty much anything, not just, I guess, development related, right? So I mean, there is, of course, for example, AP5, which allows you to write scrapers, but also there are a lot of servers which go beyond just development. And again, Slack is kind of, I guess, in between, right? It's not always used for the messenger for development teams, right? It can be also used for for communities and whatnot. So in general, anything you can program, you can convert to MCP, and these can further extend the capabilities of the agents to get more context, to give you more precise answers to your queries. And yeah, so as I mentioned, there's sort of the foreshadowed. There are MCPs probably for everything. So today's focus is Slack MCP, but there are quite a few other popular messaging apps which are used inside development teams, right? So Teams, if you prefer to suffer, Discord, Telegram maybe, and Ring Central, there's a few of them. All of them have their own MCP servers. So for Teams, for example, it is official Microsoft MCP server. For the rest of those three, I think it's third-party servers, but either way, something I guess to be aware of. So if you're not using Slack, but you're using something else in your everyday life, in your everyday job, pretty much all or similar possibilities, which I will show later, would be available for you as well. If you basically replace Slack MCP server with a Teams MCP server or Telegram or whatever you use, right? And initially, the sort of semi-official, I guess, Slack MCP server was created by Anthropic themselves when they introduced Model Context Protocol. Since then, they decided to archive it, unfortunately. However, we at Zencoder decided to pick it up and extend its capabilities. So initially, when the Anthropic introduced the MCP server, the Slack MCP server, it was only able to communicate through SDIO transport, which means that it was only able to run locally. And this is fine as long as you are using this MCP server alone, right? So as long as you are using the Slack bot behind the MCP server alone. However, the MCP server itself requires some secrets from Slack application, which obviously you don't want to share between your between everyone, because well they're secrets, so they need to be kept secret. So for that, usually people are using Slack using MCP servers as a remote through remote transport protocol, for example, a streamable HTTP. And this is one of the things which we added to this Slack MCP server, which we sort of picked up from Anthropic, and it is open source. You can find it pretty much on the same sources where you were able to find the previous Slack MCP from Anthropic, on the NPM, on the Docker, on GitHub, of course, and it is essentially a drop-in replacement. So it follows pretty much the same format of the config. So you don't need to change anything except for the location of the NPM package or the Docker image or whatever, however you previously used the Anthropic's MCP server for Slack. And yeah, let me quickly show that. So here, for example, well, here in this case, I have the remote config, right? So in my case, I will be showing some few things with the remotely deployed Slack MCP server, which is available on our community. And I censored the token here, but yeah. Otherwise, if we go to this repository, I think I have it open here. So you should be able to see a few examples on how to incorporate this in the configs. Okay, I don't see the configs, but yeah, they are pretty much exactly the same as you would have previously with the Anthropic's original Slack MCP server. So it is basically as I said, drop-in replacement with extended capabilities, some fixes, and it can now work remotely with your with everyone in the team not needing to have their own Slack bot to get the tokens and whatnot. So basically, it is much more flexible in that regard. And yeah, on this link is the actual source code. So if you want to also add some capabilities, extend it, feel free to create a pull request to this repository. Now, on the functionality itself, so in this case, I asked Zencoder to give me sort of the summary of what the Slack MCP server is able to do. You can also find the more detailed list of what the tool inputs are, outputs, and so on the GitHub page. But basically, as you can see, Zencoder decided to group them nicely into 3 categories. So you can message, right? So you can, through MCP server, you can send messages to Slack or directly to the user. You can reply to threads, and you can also, of course, put emoji reactions to the messages. You can get messages back, so you can get messages from channels, from threads, and of course, listen channels is also important part in this. And you can also do some user management there as well. However, on the user side, as you can see, it is read-only. So the only essentially write capabilities for this Slack MCP is about messaging to Slack. So it's not overly open in terms of security, right? So there's not a lot of potential breaches there. Although, of course, as with any MCP, you need to be careful. And I think I have, so basically, as with any MCP, with great power comes great responsibility. So be considerate every time you use MCP. However, skip this one over here. As I said, you can use Slack MCP server to message everyone. Essentially, well, in this case, for example, you can also ask it to message not yourself, but PM. Although in my case, I will be messaging myself mostly. And yeah, you can, now whenever your PM asks you when a task will be done, you can just ask Zencoder to answer him or her nicely. Now, yeah, so on the practical applications, and well, of course, this one is one of them, right? As I mentioned, you can message yourself or your PM right from Zencoder. You don't need to switch context to Slack or whatever. However, let me quickly get back to my VS Code over here. And yeah, so as I mentioned, a few tools, a few examples of applications which you can potentially use in incorporate into your everyday life, of course. So for example, in my case, first of all, I have instruction for the agent to message me every time it is done with the task. So as you know, you can have our agents running autonomously, either fully autonomously in the cloud and CI, or at least in the IDE, you can allow them to execute everything. So you don't need to sit and wait while they finish the task. You can get notified by them automatically. So in my case, I put this simple instruction here, basically asking to send me a message, and I'm specifying my user ID just to make it easier for the LLM to find me in Slack. And yeah, now every time I set a task to the agent, and then I can switch out from IDE, and at the end, once the task is done, I just get notified by the agent with a summary or whatever it's doing. Now, of course, you can, let's start something simple. So I can ask the agent to say hi to Alex in Slack. So just to sort of set the floor for the capabilities of the MCP server. So as you can see, because my instruction is also attached, it knows my UID right away. So it should have sent me the message. Let me open the Slack over here. And yeah, so here we go. It sent me a message. So just to follow up on this one, add I think it's this one, coffee reaction to the last message in DMs with Alex. Right, so of course, emojis in Slack is an important part. So, and well, let's see. So I decided to get a history first to get a message, and then it should be able to set the actual reaction. Let's see, and there we go. we got the reaction set up for us by the agent itself. But of course, those are essentially just simple examples, right? So, well, as you can see here, some leftovers from the previous messages, right? So where the agent sent me some messages when it was done with the task. Now, on to more complicated practical applications is, so let's say you have a channel, right? So for example, here in the community in Slack, we have a few channels, for example, for feature requests, for support, for the bug reports. So let's say me as a QA, for example, as a QA engineer or product manager, I want to get a summary of the bug reports in Slack, right? So essentially, I can ask Zencoder, or for that matter, any MCP compliant tool like Claude Code, for example, or Claude in general, just to summarize the threads for me from specific channel. So let's check the bug reports, for example, right? So summarize all the let's not summarize all, let the 5 latest threads in bug reports channel. And yeah, through MCP, through Slack MCP, the agent will be able to essentially go. So as you can see, it's checking the list of channels. So it'll be able to find because in reality it's called not bug reports, but I think it's called what 07 bug reports. So it was able to find the actual channel which I'm referring to. Oh, it's not a member of the channel. Let me fix that quickly. I thought I added it. I guess not. All right. So yeah, one thing to note, and this is essentially a Slack limitation, I guess. You need to have this bot added to the channel before it's able to access it. I added you. Try again. So now it should be able to get access to this channel. Let's see. Yeah, so the channel history looks like it. Yeah, looks like it worked. So then, as you can see, basically summarized for us the issues. So let's see, there are some, I think, a few bug reports from a couple weeks ago, right? So it was able to essentially summarize it for us, provided some timestamps, which is important, I think, for all the Slack communications on the backend. And as you can see, it also getting the threads from each of the message. So basically, it's not just looking at the message itself, it's also checking all the threads inside to give more precise summaries. And as instructed, again, else also sending me a message, and then it should also post summary here. Yeah, so you can see it also posted summary here. But as instructed, it also sent me the message here in Slack. So summary of 5 latest bug reports. So you can, like, you have some long threads or a lot of channels. You can ask the agent to essentially summarize them for you, or maybe even answer to some of them, because it can get send replies to specific threads as well. Or alternatively, if you, for example, see a very long thread, like, sometimes in Slack or in any messaging app for that matter, threads can span several hundreds of messages. Let me see if I can find some long ones. So let's say we can, for example, ask it to summarize this one. Right, so let's summarize this thread, and we can just send a link to this thread, and this should work as well. Oh, alternatively, so as I mentioned, timestamps are important for Slack backend bots, and this number over here is essentially a Slack a timestamp. Sorry, over here. So this is essentially an identifier for the Slack threads. So this is something that MCP server or the Slack backend uses in background to identify the thread. And as you might have noticed in the previous Slack channel, sorry, Slack request, it also used these timestamps over here to identify the threads. So you can use them also to reference those Slack threads going forward when you are interacting with the agent. Going here, as you can see, provided some summary for the thread, and again, as instructed, post me a Slack message. Right. So, of course, you can also then potentially ask the agent to fix the issue and then reply to this thread that the issue is fixed, send a pull request, whatnot. So essentially, you can interact with your messaging app without switching the context, without switching the IDE. Now, one other thing which is actually not directly tied to Slack MCP on its own, but like on the first glance, but something that is also actually quite nicely connected to the previous webinar on autonomous agents. And in case you missed it, you can find it easily on YouTube channel. I'm not sure about LinkedIn history, but definitely on our YouTube channel, you can find the recording from the last webinar about autonomous agents. Now, what you can do with Slack is, and with our, in this case, encoder bot, or well, you can create this bot on your own. You can connect this to autonomous agent. So essentially, what I did here is whenever the Zencoder is tagged, it will send a request to our autonomous agent to, well, fix the task or whatever it is asked to do. So let's see, let's do this Zencoder. And I will use, I think, the same issue which I used in the previous webinar in autonomous agents, right? So extract namespace from readability and use that across all languages. Now on the backend, on the autonomous agent side, it is already configured to and connected to specific repository. So whenever I do this, this should essentially trigger our autonomous agent, send this task, send this message as a prompt, or you can also, of course, set it up in such a way that it might, for example, send the whole thread or some specific messages, and you can also use as triggers and pretty much any event. So instead of some tagging Zencoder, you can just assign the trigger to set in an emoji. So for example, I didn't set this up, but for example, you could also do this whenever you tag the message with this icon, for example, this would trigger the agent as well. Now, while I was talking, I think, yeah, as you can see, our agent, let me reload the page just in case, but as you can see, our agent got triggered from Slack, and it got our prompt. Yep, so implement the following. I have also some sort of wrapper around the user message from Slack. So basically implement the following user task, the message itself from the Slack, and then prepare a pull request. So then, of course, essentially, you can connect this autonomous agent through Slack MCP back to your Slack to allow, for example, it to ask you questions, some clarifications, and so on. So you can essentially enable this back and forth communication between you and autonomous agents right inside the Slack or any messaging app, so that you don't even need to, switch from talking to your product manager in Slack. You just open the different tab here in Slack and reply to the agent or nudge it about the progress and so on. So basically, this gives you a lot of, I guess, flexibility in the ways you can, well, first of all, collect context, right, from Slack, because obviously Slack or other messaging apps for that matter are a huge source of context relevant to some tasks sometimes, right? Not everything gets sent, copied to Jira from the discussions, like especially some, hundreds of messages discussions in thread, right? And well, for that matter, you can also ask the encoder, for example, to summarize this thread and update your ticket as appropriate. And yeah, in general, as that you can also enable the agent. In this case, I didn't set this up, but you can essentially provide the MCP server to this agent, to this autonomous agent, and allow it to talk back with you to, again, ask for clarifications, ask for any specifics, or maybe just even notify you about task completion like I did with inside the IDE. All right, so with that, I think that's all of the sort of different types of applications which we internally use inside the company, and I hope this actually also inspired you to, or maybe inspired you to think about some other cool applications where you can apply, well, either Slack or again whatever you use as a messaging app in your company, and different ways how you can leverage this connection between agent and your messaging app to enhance your everyday life and enhance your working life, I guess, as well. And with that, I think we have a few, like 5 minutes for the questions, if we have any, and yeah, we'll be happy to answer them.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Alex, for this wonderful walkthrough. Yeah, meanwhile, if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'll bring it up on the screen and then Alex can take it up. I do have one question, but that is not related to Slack. It's around, let me just pull that up. Good evening. How much will it cost for unlimited LLM calls?
Well, I don't think we have unlimited in our plans, to be honest, right? So, and unlimited is kind of broad term, right? So, yeah, I mean, not connected to Zencoder, but in general, I don't think there is such thing as unlimited in reality, right? So even if used, there was a recent thread from Anthropic, for example, about the cloud code usage where somebody is using it 24/7. Still, I would imagine they imply some limits, some sanity checks, essentially. So I don't think unlimited in a true sense of word would make sense for any business really. But yeah, that being said, I think, for example, even on our $49 plan, people rarely hit the limits, right? Or again, depending on your use, depending on the use cases and how heavy AI user you are, you should be able to find the best plan for you. And again, on top of that, we don't cut you off once you finish your terminal calls for the day. We also have this what we call slow request, which essentially allows you to then, on top of your premium request, continue to use the agent without stopping, just with some time delay.
Got it. Perfect. Yeah, please let me know if you guys have any more questions. We'll be happy to pick them up. If no questions, then maybe we can call it off a day. But yeah, if you still have any questions, anything that you want to ask about Slack MCP or anything around Zencoder, feel free to drop them in our Slack channel or Slack community or Discord, or maybe you can even reach us out to support through support@zencoder.ai. So yeah, that's it, I guess, for today. Once again, thank you so much, Alex. Thank you so much for joining
Sure.
in today, walking people through what's the power of Slack MCP that you built out. So yeah, once again, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining in. I'll see you again next week.
Right.
Till
Thank
then,
you.
take care. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.